I was just delivering a package, or at least that's what I kept telling myself. The envelope in my hand felt heavier than it should, though maybe that was just my nerves. Her building was quiet, the kind of silence that makes every creak of your shoes echo down the hallway. I buzzed her apartment number and waited. When she opened the door, I froze. She was standing there in a soft cardigan, hair slightly mussed like she just rolled out of an impossible dream. She looked older than me, yes, but in a way that didn't intimidate, it drew me in. Her eyes, dark and alive, scanned me like she already knew more about me than I wanted to admit. "Oh, you're the delivery boy," she said, voice smooth but teasing. "I've been expecting you, though I wasn't expecting this late." Yeah," I said, throat suddenly dry. "Sorry. Traffic." My words stumbled out awkwardly, betraying my calm facade. She smiled, and that small lift of her lips did something to my chest I wasn't ready to name. "Come in," she said before I could protest. Her apartment smelled faintly of vanilla and something earthy, a mixture that made me feel grounded and untethered at once. I handed her the package, but she didn't take it immediately. Instead, she leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching me like she had all the time in the world and yet none at all. "You look tired," she said after a pause. "Long day?" "Yeah, kind of," I muttered. My eyes darted around the room, catching glimpses of framed photographs, books stacked haphazardly, a mug left on the table like she just abandoned it. It felt intimate, almost too intimate, to be standing here. She laughed softly, the kind of laugh that sinks under your ribs. "I hope I'm not keeping you," she said, though she made no move to close the door behind me. "Most people would have left by now." I don't mind," I said before thinking. My words hung in the air, clumsy but honest. Her gaze flicked down at my hands, then back to my face. "You're nervous," she observed, almost gently. "I like that. It's human." I swallowed, aware of the way her eyes lingered, the subtle tilt of her head. Something in the air shifted, charged, electric, delicate. I wanted to tell her something I couldn't. Something reckless. Something true. Minutes passed, and somehow we ended up on the couch, the package forgotten on the coffee table. She talked, and I listened, sometimes answering, mostly just absorbing the warmth in her voice. Her stories meandered like smoke, curling into corners of the room, curling around me. And I realized, impossibly, that I had no desire to leave. "Time flies, huh?" she said softly, eyes meeting mine in a way that made my pulse jerk. "Yeah," I murmured, barely daring to breathe. "It really does." We both fell silent for a moment, just breathing, just existing in the same space. And then, the sound of her doorbell cutting through the quiet. She froze. I froze. The tension thickened between us, a fragile line stretched too tight. She gave me a look, one that asked a question without words, and I didn't have an answer. Somewhere in me, I knew nothing after this would be simple. The doorbell echoed again, and she hesitated, letting out a short, nervous laugh. That's probably my neighbor. Don't mind it." I nodded, but my chest still hammered. I couldn't stop thinking about her, about the way her cardigan clung in just the right places, the way her hair fell loose over one shoulder, the warmth in her laugh that made me forget to breathe. She glanced at me, then looked away quickly, biting her lip like she had caught herself thinking too much. "I don't usually let people in, not like this," she admitted. Her voice was soft, layered with something I couldn't name. Regret? Hesitation? A warning I didn't want to heed. "You don't have to," I said, fumbling with my words. "I mean, it's just the package." I shouldn't have stayed. But I didn't move. And she didn't tell me to leave. "You're different from the others," she said finally, almost whispering. "I don't know why, but you make it easy to talk." Her eyes lingered, and I saw the flicker of something, vulnerability, maybe even loneliness. I wanted to tell her that I understood. That I, too, carried a weight I rarely shared. But my words got stuck in my throat. Instead, I let silence fill the space, and somehow it said more than either of us could. She sighed and sank back into the couch. I've been hurt before. More than once. I didn't think I'd. Her voice trailed off. She didn't finish the sentence, but I could fill in the blanks. Her past relationships, failures, and maybe the careful barriers she'd built around herself. I get it, I said softly, keeping my eyes on the carpet. I've had my share too. You think you're ready for someone, and then life has a way of. I stopped, not wanting to say, breaking you? Aloud. Her hand brushed against mine accidentally, or maybe intentionally, as she shifted. My fingers tingled. Neither of us moved away. Why are you so young? She asked, almost teasing, but the edge in her voice hinted at something deeper. It makes things complicated. I swallowed. I don't know. Maybe I like the challenge? I said, and it sounded both braver and more foolish than I meant. She laughed, low and soft, and the sound wrapped around me like a secret. You're ridiculous, she said, shaking her head. But her eyes softened, and I saw the weight she carried, years of disappointment, the quiet ache of someone who had learned too well how to protect herself. There was a moment, a suspended breath between us, where everything else vanished. The apartment, the doorbell, the past mistakes we carried, all of it faded. And when her hand grazed mine again, I didn't pull away. Not this time. Her gaze held mine, steady and searching, and I felt something shift inside me, a bridge forming, fragile but real, between our two worlds. Something unspoken passed in that glance. Something that promised both danger and desire. And for the first time that night, I allowed myself to hope that I should have left. I really should have. But the moment her hand brushed mine again, the world shrank to that small spark of contact. I shouldn't be here, I muttered, trying to stand. She didn't let me. She leaned back just enough to keep me close, eyes dark, unreadable. You don't have to go, she whispered. And then, before I could think, she shifted closer. The air between us thickened, every heartbeat amplified. I caught the faint scent of her perfume, something warm, earthy, irresistible. My phone buzzed. I glanced at it, a message from my roommate. You left your bike outside. We need to talk. Irritatingly mundane, but it yanked me back toward reality. I wanted to check it, wanted the excuse to move, but I couldn't. She noticed the hesitation, a smirk flickering. You're avoiding me, she said softly, almost teasing. Why? I'm not. I mean, I trailed off, words betraying me. I could feel my cheeks heating, my pulse hammering. Her gaze softened. Because you know it's wrong? I wanted to nod. I should have. She was older. Experienced. I was barely out of college. And yet the pull, magnetic, unrelenting, kept me planted. Then the door opened. A voice. Sharp. Familiar. Honey? Is someone here? I froze, caught mid-breath. She froze, too, and the warmth between us collapsed instantly into tension. Her ex-husband. Or maybe, current? I couldn't tell, but the implication was the same. Risk, taboo, danger. I should go. I stammered, moving toward the door, my stomach twisting with guilt and frustration. No, she said, voice firmer now. Stay. Please. Her hand caught mine again, holding it, a lifeline I couldn't refuse. The footsteps drew nearer, and I realized the absurdity of it all. I was a 20-something kid, standing inches away from a woman who carried years of pain and grace in her eyes, and we were both pretending this was just friendly. Maybe I should call my lawyer, the voice said from the hallway. A joke? A threat? I didn't know, but it made my stomach drop. She gave my hand a quick, fleeting squeeze, almost apologetic, almost daring. Our eyes met, and for a heartbeat, the world outside the apartment didn't exist. Not the door, not the past, not the consequences. Just her. Just me. I wanted to kiss her. Wanted to erase every caution, every boundary. But I pulled back, just a fraction, heart in my throat. Later, she whispered. I didn't ask what she meant, and she didn't clarify. That was enough. The promise in that single word hung between us, fragile and dangerous. And as the footsteps faded away, leaving the apartment silent again, I realized the risk made everything sharper, every glance, every touch, every breath we took together. We weren't safe. We weren't meant to be. And yet, somehow, either of us wanted to run. I couldn't stop thinking about her. Not a second went by without the echo of her laugh, the brush of her fingers against mine, the way her eyes seemed to see me even when I tried to hide. And yet, the more I thought, the more the walls I'd built around myself began to crumble. She was sitting across from me on the couch that night, a glass of wine in her hand. Her posture was calm, but her eyes betrayed something deeper, impatience, longing, maybe even frustration. I wanted to read it all, to decode her, but I was afraid of what I might find. You talk too much, she said, almost teasing, but the edge in her voice made me pause. Or maybe I just listened too much. I shifted in my seat, suddenly aware of how my hands were trembling. I can't help it, I admitted, voice low. You make it easy. Dangerous even. Her lips twitched, but she didn't laugh. Instead, she leaned forward slightly, and I caught a flash of something raw, a hunger, a fear, a question that hung between us like smoke. I'm not supposed to feel like this, she whispered, eyes locked on mine. You're too young. Too reckless. And yet, she didn't finish. She never did. She didn't have to. I wanted to tell her I felt the same. That every thought in my head, every moment of hesitation, every night spent imagining her laugh or the curve of her smile, was proof. But I didn't. I just watched, heart pounding, as the room seemed to shrink around us. A noise from the hallway, a faint cough, a creak in the floorboards, jolted me upright. I wanted to step back, to put distance between us, but my body refused. My eyes stayed glued to hers. Why don't you kiss me? I muttered, more to myself than to her. Immediately, I wished I could take it back. She froze, and the silence that followed was worse than any confession. Her fingers brushed against mine again, this time lingering, and the spark it sent through me was almost unbearable. I shouldn't, she said, voice barely audible. I can't. And yet, the way she leaned toward me, the faint parting of her lips, the intensity in her eyes, it told me everything she wouldn't say. Desire. Fear. A kind of reckless surrender that mirrored my own. I swallowed hard, torn between what I wanted and what I knew was complicated, dangerous. Between what could be ours and what could destroy us. My hand twitched toward hers, and hers twitched toward mine, and for a suspended, terrifying second, I felt like the universe had paused just for us. Then, the doorbell rang. Sharp. Insistent. The sound ripped through the tension like a knife, dragging us back toward reality, back toward the impossible. We both froze, eyes locking in a silent, desperate exchange. Every boundary, every warning, every whispered promise of later and don't all collided in that heartbeat. And in that instant I knew everything was about to change. I thought we had a moment. I thought the world had narrowed to just her, the curve of her smile, the warmth of her hand near mine, the quiet pulse of her presence in the apartment. And then my phone buzzed. A photo. I opened it, heart stuttering. It was her. Not alone. Not with anyone I could see clearly, but the way the shadows fell, the casual intimacy of her posture. it was enough. Enough to make my chest tighten, to make a bitter taste fill my mouth. I looked up. She was laughing at something I hadn't said, a sound that used to make me dizzy with longing. Now it made me feel like I'd been naive, like I'd misread everything. "Who's that?" I asked, voice tighter than I intended. She froze, eyes flicking to my phone, then away, then back. "It's nothing," she said, quick, almost defensive. But the slight tremble in her hands told me it was anything but nothing. "You're lying," I whispered, though part of me didn't want to hear her say it aloud. I wasn't going to tell you yet," she admitted, voice low. "It's complicated. It's not what you think." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to trust the curve of her lips, the tilt of her head, the way her eyes sometimes softened when they found mine. But the photo had shattered the fragile bubble we'd been floating in. "Complicated?" I said, my throat tight. "You're always complicated." She flinched, and I saw it, the familiar wall she built when someone got too close. "I didn't want to drag you into this," she said softly, almost pleading. I'm trying to fix things." "Fix things?" I echoed, feeling something in me snap. "You're not supposed to be fixing. You're supposed to be here." The air between us thickened, every unspoken word, every hesitation, every shadow of her past pressing in. I wanted to reach for her, to pull her close, to erase the confusion and fear and anger all at once. But I stayed frozen. She moved closer anyway, despite the tension, despite the lie. Her hand brushed mine, tentative, almost desperate. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she said. "I never wanted it to be like this." I swallowed hard, feeling my own contradictions tearing me apart. Wanting her, needing her, and yet furious at the secrets that had invaded this fragile trust. "I don't know if I can do this," I admitted, voice breaking just a little. "I don't know if I can handle everything you're carrying." Her eyes softened, a flash of guilt and longing battling on her face. "Then don't," she whispered. "Stay. Or go. But know this, whatever happens, I want you. I do. Even if it's messy. Even if it's impossible." And just like that, the stakes shifted. The safe space we'd built was gone. Everything we'd felt, everything we'd shared, became urgent, fragile, and dangerous. I wanted to scream, to run, to stay, to kiss her, all at once. And I knew, deep down, that nothing after this would ever be simple again. I couldn't think straight. My mind was a tangle of every secret she'd ever held, every glance, every touch, every confession left unsaid. And yet, when I looked at her, all I could see was now, her eyes, dark and unguarded, searching mine for an answer I didn't know I had. "You can walk away," she said softly, almost gently. "I won't stop you. Not if this is too much." I wanted to walk away. I wanted to run and leave the tangled mess of her life behind, leave myself behind, leave this impossible attraction untested. But my feet refused. My heart refused. "I can't," I admitted, voice low, shaking. "I shouldn't, maybe I shouldn't. But I can't." Her breath hitched, the tiniest quiver, and she reached for me. Her hand found mine, fingers curling around mine with quiet insistence. "Then don't. Stay. If you want. Don't think about what's right or wrong. Just be here. With me." I swallowed hard, feeling every ounce of restraint in me crumble. Us, it's messy," I said, words tumbling out, unpolished and raw. "It's reckless. And I don't care. I don't care about any of it if it means being with you." She laughed softly, the sound fragile and beautiful, a tremor in the quiet. "You're ridiculous," she said, shaking her head. But she didn't pull away. Her lips parted just a fraction, inviting, questioning, daring me to cross a line we both knew existed. My hand moved to her cheek, hesitant, almost reverent. She leaned into the touch, eyes fluttering closed for a heartbeat, and I realized nothing else mattered. Not the age difference. Not the past mistakes. Not the complications. I don't care either, she whispered. I just want this. You. Us. Right now. And that was all I needed. The last walls holding me back dissolved in the heat of her gaze, the tremor in her hand, the promise in her voice. We leaned in, dangerously close, and for a moment the world fell silent. Heartbeats synchronized, breaths mingling, 1,000 unspoken words hanging between us. I could feel the weight of everything we'd carried, everything we'd hidden, pressing down on us, and still, I wanted her. And then, she stopped. Just shy of my lips, eyes wide, sparkling, almost afraid. Later, she whispered, just like before, and I caught it, the hint of promise, of fire, of patience tempered by longing. I nodded, barely able to speak, hand still on her cheek. Later, I echoed. The tension didn't vanish. It didn't have to. We understood each other now. Fully. Totally. And the uncertainty, the dangerous, delicious unknown, was ours to navigate together. I felt her fingers tighten around mine, a silent vow in that small, powerful gesture. We didn't need words. Not yet. The night stretched on, full of questions, full of promise. And somewhere in the quiet, I realized, no matter what tomorrow brings, we are already tangled, already ours. Morning came slow, diffused sunlight spilling through the curtains. The apartment smelled faintly of coffee and vanilla, the quiet after last night's storm of tension and unspoken confessions almost sacred. She was sitting on the edge of the couch, one hand cradling a mug, the other tucked close to her chest. I watched her for a long moment, noting the little lines around her eyes, the softness of her lips, the calm strength in the way she held herself. Mid-40s, yes, but impossibly alive, full of stories, full of presence. And somehow, despite everything, I felt at home just watching her. You stay, she said, voice breaking the morning quiet. A small smile lifted one corner of her lips. Even after everything. I did, I admitted, voice low, almost shy. Because leaving would have been wrong. And I don't think I could. Her eyes softened, shimmering with a mix of relief and something I couldn't name. We're reckless, she said. Messy. Dangerous. Yeah, I said, leaning back into the couch, letting my hand find hers. But we're real. That's worth something, isn't it? She laughed softly, a sound I realized I had been carrying in my chest all night, and she squeezed my hand. Yes. Real, she said. And maybe worth it. We didn't need to define everything. Not yet. The complications, the age gap, the past shadows, they were still there. But in that morning light, they felt manageable, like puzzles we could solve together, slowly. I reached out, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. Her eyes met mine, warm, steady, unflinching. I don't want to pretend anymore, she said. I don't want to hide what we are. Neither do I said, heart racing, knowing I'd never felt anything like this before. I want us. Complicated, messy, impossible, but ours. She leaned back against the couch, resting her head against my shoulder. I wrapped an arm around her, the kind of embrace that said everything words couldn't. Safe, close, and entirely human. There was no grand declaration, no dramatic scene. Just the quiet comfort of two people who had taken a risk, had fallen into each other's lives, and had chosen, however imperfectly, to stay. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel fear or hesitation. I felt connection. I felt us. And it was enough. Outside, the city moved on, oblivious to the small, miraculous decision we'd made inside this apartment. But for us, the world had shifted, permanently, subtly, irrevocably. And as we sat there, hands intertwined, eyes meeting in gentle silence, I knew, some beginnings are worth all the risk. Some love is worth every complicated, messy second. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?